FNAF has many timelines. The timelines of the books, the timelines of the other books, the timelines of the other books, the timelines of the movies, the timelines of the games. You may think some of these timelines are the same, but not all of them are the same. If there are any believers that the Silver Eyes are in the game's continuity, please leave a comment. I am dying to know why. And in every timeline, we see some consistencies. Fazbear is a horrible company that puts people in danger for a shiny nickel. Possessed animatronics. A plot device for having an unreliable narrator, be that illusion discs or nightmare gas. And in every universe, we have a William Afton. In every universe, he's the child killer. In every universe, an MCI. And in every universe, William Afton not only kills children, but also kidnaps them. For science, for vengeance. The motive varies, but in every universe, he kills some and kidnaps others. In every universe except for one, the game's timeline. I'm Candy Bunny, and if you dig deep enough, I think you'll find the William Afton of the games really is a kidnapper, and that his victim is one of his 3 children. Others have pointed out how strange it is that in every other timeline, William kidnaps kids. Well, we all knew he kidnapped kids in the games, but he's only keeping them alive for like 7 minutes before they're getting the old killed and stuffed treatment. But in other stories, he's in it for the long haul. In Didophobia, William Afton kidnaps a boy named Rory to experiment on fear, and he's down there for a full decade. In A Silver Eyes, William kidnaps Sammy Emily, except he actually kidnaps Charlie. I still don't know how that works, but I'll figure it out. And in the movies, he drives to Nebraska to kidnap Garrett. But in the games, we're missing this. William just seems to be a cold-blooded killer. And it's strange because in general, when we have the same story being told across different timelines, they're informing each other. The twisted animatronics informs FNAF 4 Nightmares, informs Didophobia Nightmare Gas. These retellings of events we've seen are Scott and the authors that he works with pointing us towards things that we missed in the original stories, or making sense of the original stories retroactively, depending on which you prefer. So if every other timeline is telling us William Afton is not only a killer, but a child napper, are we meant to infer the Afton of the games is also kidnapping kids? Or did the games just get the one version of Afton that's so impatient he's just gotta kill him right away? That seems hard to believe given how consistent this characterization is in every other universe. However, narrative parallels, even to yourself in an alternate dimension, do not a satisfying theory make. Is there anything in the games to make us think our William Afton is a kidnapper? Yes. We have sister locations, the Immortal and the Restless, and I don't see people giving enough credit to Scott for that banger of a title. I'd watch a show called The Immortal and the Restless. Anyway, between-night cutscenes and minigames have been a crucial storytelling device for Scott since FNAF 2, and sister location is no different. Mike goes home after his shifts, pops some popcorn, puts on his soap operas where we all collectively went, when the purple undead vampire man said over and over again,
Clara, I tell you, the baby isn't mine.
Purple? Like, the purple guy? Undead? Like, Springtrap Willie Afton? Oh, the lore! He's saying one of his kids isn't his. The baby isn't his. Except this huge lead was shoved to the back of the fridge with the spinach I only use on sandwiches because I haven't made a sandwich in a while, and it got all brown and soggy and wilty, and honestly now I'm afraid to touch it. Okay, maybe that's not the right analogy, but the point is that this lead seemed to lead us to a dead end. Pizza Sim and Ultimate Custom Night put the cap on that era of FNAF with no more word about one of William's kids being suspiciously unrelated to him. And it doesn't seem like the Pizzaplex era has anything to say on the subject either. It seems like it's been teased and teased out and was ready to bonk us over the head with this lore reveal. William kidnapped a kid. William kidnapped one of his kids. And then we never got anything more concrete. But this is FNAF, and if we were looking for something more concrete, we should have picked a different fandom 9 years ago. I can work with this. Let's for a moment assume the baby isn't mine is not retconned, and one of William's kids or creations is kidnapped, and see where it gets us. Starting off with the least plausible, Michael Afton. Michael has one strong point towards being the candidate for most likely to be kidnapped: literary tropes. We all know the story. It's Cinderella, it's Harry Potter, it's Jane Eyre. It's the child who isn't biologically related to the parent figure who is treated worse than the other children because the parent doesn't love them as much. And Not Real Name Not At All nailed it on the head when they said Michael is the scapegoat child. Every Afton child had it rough in the parental neglect department, but Michael seems to have been especially cruelly treated. Could he perhaps have been kidnapped and isn't biologically related to William? That's why William dealt carelessly with his life and sent him down to the scooper. Probably not, and it's because genetics are on Michael's side. Scott intentionally had the same voice actor, PJ Haywood, voice both the father and the son in this very game.
She can dance. She can sing. Father, it's me, Michael.
And if the voice wasn't an intentional enough design decision for you, there's also the plot point that all the animatronics, including the one possessed by Afton's own daughter, mistake the son for the father. The resemblance must be strong with this one. Maybe that's why Afton was so hard on Mike. He couldn't bear to stare at his own ugly mug. Nah, it's probably because he got Dave killed. Either way, Mike is the most secure in his position as a true blood Afton. Up next, we have a popular contender for the spot of not real Afton, not at all. Little Elizabeth. After all, what's our one big evidence point for Kidnapper Afton being in the games?
The baby isn't mine.
And who possesses the animatronic named Baby? That's right, it's little Lizzie. Elizabeth, however, is on the opposite side of the favored child spectrum from Mike. Elizabeth is the golden child, the one child we see Afton make an attempt to protect and to please. He tries to win her affection in the way any normal father would, by building her a not at all creepy 7-foot-tall clown baby doll. How not horrifying at all. He also cares to warn her away from the dangers of the animatronics, much more than can be said for Mike, who gets coerced into working up close and personal with Funtime Freddy the sadist.
I know you're over there somewhere.
So it would be an unusual direction to go to have William's favorite child be someone else's kid who he stole. Elizabeth also has the same problem that Mike does: Britishness.
She's so pretty and shiny. Didn't you make her just for me?
Thank goodness, Scott did not enlist PJ Haywood to voice Elizabeth, but he did have her voice actress take the same direction with the accent. And finally, Elizabeth is loyal to Afton to the end, after she gets over her murderous grudge against him and forgets the electroshock therapy she received in the bunker. She rolls up to Pizzeria Simulator ready to ride for the Afton brand. This is also just a strange direction to go for a character if they're supposed to be the kidnapped non-biological child of the villain. I mean, I definitely get the kidnapped child turned weapon trope, but it's not developed enough to be that trope. Baby never has her moment of realizing she's not his kid and just a tool in either choosing to stay under the thumb or revolt. Why set that up narratively and do all the work of building up to the trope and then reap zero of the benefits? That said, aside from her Britishness, which can be explained by her just being kidnapped really young, all the arguments against Elizabeth are narrative and not evidentiary in nature, which is why Elizabeth remains a strong contender. Now let's take a brief aside from the Afton family itself and talk about another common interpretation of The Baby Isn't Mine. The fourth closet dropped 2 years after Sister Location, and Baby takes center stage as Charlie's foil and foe. The whole of it is a little weird. The fourth closet is weird, but it does make sense of the line, "The baby isn't mine," because in the fourth closet, we find out that Henry built the baby animatronic and meant to have Charlie possess it. The baby isn't mine, not talking about an Afton child, it's talking about the literal animatronic. Henry built baby, William stole baby. Case closed, right? If you're satisfied with that, but I am not. Not only because it's supported nowhere else in the franchise, but also because of the larger context of the quote, "The baby isn't mine." Let's talk about the show The Immortal and the Restless, and I think you'll see what I mean.
You need to see your son!
The baby isn't mine.
He ate the cat!
Sounds like something he got from your side of the family.
So, Vlad is a vampire, as we've said, and Clara is his mistress, according to the narrator. And Clara goes back and forth between begging Vlad to recognize the baby as his and support the child, and threatening Vlad with legal action and fire. Vlad being William Afton seems to be pretty clearly telegraphed. The purple undead man? Yeah, that's William. I say that with confidence, and I am confident. But for full transparency, there are other theories out there. I've heard Vlad as Mike before, but personally I'm pretty firmly in the Vlad as William camp. Clara is more up for debate, with the most popular interpretations being Mrs. Afton, Henry, and Mike. I'm a fan of Clara being Mike, because Scott just doesn't seem that interested in characterizing Mrs. Afton for us. Henry doesn't have much reason to argue over a metaphorical baby with William, and Clara burns the house down, which is very Mike of her to do. This interpretation will still work if you think Clara is Mrs. Afton. The context of The Baby Isn't Mine is that it's Vlad's rebuttal every time Clara tries to get him to care and provide for his child. Clara, in the role of Mike, trying to get Vlad, in the role of William, to care and provide for William's child. And William is saying he doesn't have to because it's not even his kid. This matches up with what we see from the FNAF 4 Between Night minigames and from the Sister Location Elizabeth lines. William is not around to care and provide for his kids, even the child he seems to care the most about. Mike is saddled with the responsibility of his younger brother, even when he's too young and too immature to be a good babysitter. All this to say, the line "The baby isn't mine" could be about the animatronic baby if it was out on its own, but in the context of a story about someone trying to get William to be a present father figure, it makes less sense. And this brings us back to the 3 Afton children, and there's only one left, little Dave. Dave, the crying child, fits the bill of the baby in The Immortal and the Restless even better than Elizabeth. The characterization we got of Mike, Dave, and William in the FNAF 4 minigames is, in my opinion, strong enough to even beat out the connection of the name baby. Clara, Mike, is begging William to accept the child and take care of the child, and provide back child support. This doesn't fit nearly as well for Elizabeth. Elizabeth is the golden child. William was neglectful and just a horrible parent in some way to all his children, but Elizabeth is the one who gets the preferential treatment, and it's the crying child who's severely neglected. We don't see William interact with Dave directly at all, and he lets horrible things happen to Dave. Afton goes out of his way, if only a little, to protect protect and care for Elizabeth by forbidding her from approaching Baby, and he goes out of his way to buy her affections with a 7-foot clown nightmare baby doll from hell. Whereas with the crying child, even though it's likely he speaks to Dave through the Fredbear plush, he doesn't attempt to take any credit for communicating with him that way. He wants no fatherly connection with this child. The Fredbear plush is more of this weird observation of the crying child, and William uses the plush to manipulate the experiment, but not to connect or care for Dave in any way. If either Mrs. Afton or Mike, probably Mike, are begging William to pay attention to one of his children and to care for them, saying, clearly this is your child, pay attention to it, and for him to say, no, it's not my child, it makes more sense for it to be the crying child, not for it to be Elizabeth, because he is paying attention to Elizabeth, especially by Afton family standards. I mean, he's definitely an all-around neglectful father, and if any of these kids had made it to adulthood, they would have needed serious therapy. But if this is all Mike knows of family life, he's not going to say, pay more attention to your poor daughter, she's neglected, because compared to Mike and Dave, Elizabeth is living in the spotlight. We've got more points towards the crying child as well. The FNAF movie. The FNAF movie has the Afton and Emily children seemingly swapped. In the games, Henry has the one girl, and William has main character Mike, crying child who sets off the narrative, and little sister Elizabeth. In the movies, Afton has the one girl, Vanessa, and probably Henry has the 3 kids, main character Mike, missing child Garrett who sets off the narrative, and little sister Abby. Garrett is the movie parallel to the crying child, and his kidnapping is the inciting incident for the events of the movie. Movie Afton kidnaps movie crying child. The movie's version of the crying child being the kidnapped victim invites us to look closer to Dave to see if he might be our kidnapped victim as well. But it can't be all our evidence. After all, in the Silver Eyes trilogy, it's Charlie who's kidnapped. Sometimes these things vary from timeline to timeline. But I'm sure it's the crying child. If any of the Afton children are kidnapped, it has to be Dave. Wanna know why? Listen to this.
Father, it's me, Michael.
Daddy, she can make balloons. Have you seen her make balloons?
And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to. She's free now.
Don't tell Daddy that I'm here. I wanted to watch your show too. I don't know why he won't let me come see you. You're wonderful.
That's right, the Aftons are British people in a sea of Americans in Utah, and they stick out like a sore thumb with their posh and proper accent. And yet Scott has held out on us at every turn for a voice actor for Dave. Every line of dialogue we've gotten has been written, never spoken. Whether or not Dave sounds British remains ambiguous. That's why the crying child is by far the most likely of the Afton children to not really be an Afton, but rather a kidnapped victim. But the truth is, I don't think we have enough evidence to say that one of the Afton children were kidnapped, let alone which one. What I am saying is that Scott seemed to have left a plot thread open for William to be a kidnapper and one of his children to be the victim. And Scott seems to have liked that idea because he kept repeating it in the other stories he created. Right now in the story, Dave may have been kidnapped, but like the FNAF 4 box, that direction could be left forgotten forever. But I've got a hunch that's not going to be the case, because I still have some more evidence up my back pocket. In Help Wanted 2, we got the very perplexing graveyard, where we must light the graves of William's victims in a certain order to progress. Everyone's minds jump to this being the death order of the victims, something the community has wanted confirmation on for a long time. But the death order didn't seem to make any sense. Chica Susie, Foxy Fritz, Freddy Gabriel, Bonnie Jeremy, Golden Freddy Cassidy, Puppet Charlie. But this didn't seem to make any sense as a death order. How could Charlie be the last to die when Henry calls her death a wound first inflicted on me? So many people have looked for an alternate meaning in the graves, with the most popular theory being that it's the order the spirits moved on. But others have said, wait, no, this order could make sense, because Chica is the first, and Chica has that line that every theorist hears at some point in their dreams.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
But then, what if the wound first inflicted on Henry? It would have to be something other than Charlie's death. Well, what if, just like the FNAF movie, the crying child is really Henry's child, who is kidnapped by William at a young age and becomes Dave? Then the wound first inflicted on Henry is not the death of Charlie, but the kidnapping and supposed killing of her twin brother. I hear you though, it doesn't make any sense for Dave to be Henry's, because William and Henry co-owned Fredbear's Family Diner, and the crying child was clearly in that location for at least a week. If William was toting around Henry's kid, and I'm pretty sure Rise Host said this first and probably said it funnier, but Henry would be like, hold up, that's my son, and what's William gonna say? Nuh-uh. Like, I think Henry would know. But maybe he wouldn't. and we're getting into real tin hat hours here. In the Silver Eyes, Charlie's birthday is inconsistent. She's either 17 in 1995, so born in 1978, or she was born in 1980. Both dates are given. Clearly it has to be one or the other. And Sammy Emily is her twin brother, so Henry's son is also either born 1978 or 1980. And I think it's more likely the game's Charlie was born in 1978 because of how intelligent the spirit in the puppet is shown to be, especially in Ultimate Custom Night. It makes more sense for the puppet to be possessed by a 7-year-old, not a 5-year-old. If the Emily twins were born in 1978, and the crying child is the game's version of Sammy Emily, in 1979, the year of the Secret of the Mimic, Henry's son would still be a baby. While William's crimes against other children are often just for pure science, or the joy of creation, or the joy of killing, William's crimes against Henry are always characterized as being a bit more personal. In the books, he's jealous of Henry and wants to take from him. He's not behind the mask when he kills Charlie in the games. If William kidnapped one of Henry's children when he was still an infant, he wouldn't want to raise it. He just wanted to take it from Henry. And now what does he do with it? Experiments. Like we see on the sister location breaker room map and in Didophobia, the crying child is under observation. William performs the fear experiments, the FNAF 4 gameplay, on the crying child, just like Terrori in Didophobia. And when enough time has finally passed that Henry has given up the search for his lost child and Dave is older and wouldn't be easily recognized, Dave is dumped on Mike to care for. Mike and Elizabeth don't know Dave isn't their real brother. To them, he's just the little brother who Dad takes to work at Circus Babies often. But Dave is inexplicably terrified of the animatronics because he's been tormented by them all his life. Mike thinks it's funny and weird that his kid brother is such a baby about the animatronics. He wasn't so scared of them when he was a kid. He uses his younger brother for cheap laughs, to let off some steam from the abuse he gets from Afton, and to look cool in front of his friends. But it's all cut short when he gets his brother killed. And also, a lot of you guys pointed out in my FNAF World Inception theory video that the puppet is part of the trio that helps Dave move on in happiest day. Wouldn't that be so cool narratively if Dave is helped along by his friend the Vengeful Spirit, his adopted brother who seeks to atone for killing him, and his twin sister who is separated from as a baby? That would be so cool. Whether Henry finds out because the crying child's body is properly autopsied or is just able to put it together once he learns of Afton's other killings, by the time of Pizza Sim, Henry knows he's lost both of his children to Afton, and that the crying child's death teased Afton on to greater atrocities, seeking new victims, new experiments, new bloodshed. It was a wound first inflicted on him, but one that he let bleed out onto others. And none of this is evidence-backed. I think it could weave together some major plot mysteries, like the FNAF 4 gameplay segments, the Help Wanted graves, the breaker room map, and a wound first inflicted on me. And they could fit together really well using narrative parallels from the Silver Eyes and Didophobia. But for now, this remains speculation and headcanon. The Secret of the Mimic could bring this theory to life just as easily as it could crush it. But it sure is a lot of fun to speculate. That's something I love about this franchise. I know theorists can sometimes get really frustrated at this franchise for not giving us anything concrete, but it leaves room for so many fun and different narratives. I mean, I literally just made a narrative where the crying child is Henry Emily's kidnapped infant son, who was locked away in a nightmare gas chamber for 4 years, and it made some kind of weird sense. And even though I didn't solve the question I set out to answer, I had the best time writing this script. So that's where I'm leaving this one. Firmly unsolved, but delightful to speculate on. And if Secret of the Mimic proves me right, you better come back here and subscribe. But it's okay, you can berate me in the comments for this one. Like I said, it was real tin hat hours at the end. But seriously, do leave your thoughts in the comments, or your crazy out there theories, because I read every single one of my comments. You'll know I've read yours if I give it a heart. And guys, holy moly. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. It's been so crazy and so fun. I'm at 3,000 subscribers. Ah! Thank you. I have been Candy Bunny, and I have candy all day. Candy, candy, candy.